Basement apartment in Brooklyn, but I was still working at the same place where the supervisor that I'd kissed stayed or worked. Excuse me. I went through another move from that basement apartment because the landlord of the house that I was living in, she decided to sell her house, so I had to find somewhere else to stay. That became a whole thing for me. It became another stress. Everything was just stress. I was staying with the roommate. I'm gonna just fast forward a little bit. Not every little detail is necessary. That's why I'm gonna be jumping around in this and editing, chopping up this video a bit. I was staying with the roommate, and I had gotten a new job at a homeless shelter as a payroll something assistant or something like that, a record keeper. This time I was keeping timesheets, and I was very serious when it came to my job. I never wanted to see anybody receive their paycheck late. It's already pressure on you, like to people are gonna come in and have complaints if they don't get their check on time, right? But I was already in my mind like there's no reason why anyone should be getting their check late. Like, if there are requests that you need for like sick leave, vacation, so on and so forth, make sure that's in on time so you can get paid on time. Like, I was serious about it. But started working there. Then I was able to get my I'll say official apartment in another basement apartment, but this time it was in Long Island, which was Queens, which was going well for a while. I still remember moving in and crying out to God, of how appreciative I was that, you got me this place, and, it's beautiful. It was a really nice, well-kept basement apartment. Not your typical, the walls were painted. There was no dropped ceiling. It was, seamless. One room apartment. I had what I wanted, but I was very broken still on the inside, and the drinking kind of waned a little bit. It waned a little bit, but it was still there. Like I said, I was okay for a while, working there, having my little apartment. But then this job, there's a site, I'm not even gonna say what site it is, where you're allowed to give your review on a job or company that you worked for. And let's just say that there were probably now hundreds of disgruntled former employees that worked there. I mean, my marriage wasn't great. It was heavy, it was hard, but the aspects of my marriage that were hard and dark, it was translated now into this homeless shelter I was working for. And you would think like a homeless shelter is more at peace, and no, it was the complete opposite. Again, looked down by upper management, those who were in the headquarters, and it was just a stress every day, like different stresses. And of course, me being young still, I think I was 20, I was getting closer to 30. Sometimes you just don't know how to deal with certain stressors, especially when it comes to work. Like, everyone thinks like, oh, well, you can just go pick up and get another job, which is true. That is true. But at the same time, I actually like my job. I liked the position that I was in, you know. I liked being over managing something, you know, and not just managing something, but knowing that it benefited others, you know, to have their checks and stuff on time. But anyway, that job was quite stressful, more than much more than the last. You know, of course, I went back to drinking and so on and so forth. A couple times I was drinking on the job, yes, and they found out, you know, because people talk, you know. Wasn't an everyday thing. Maybe drank job maybe twice, and that was during like the holiday period where you know you would have like the little potlucks and things like that. So, and most of it wasn't a secret. Like they had a holiday party in the headquarters office, like where they literally had like an open bar, like you you can go to. So it wasn't like a secret, like, oh my gosh, well, you all know me as Relis, but that's obviously not my real name. If you don't already know that, Relis Betrayal stands for relationship is better than religion, and I've become very fond of the name Relis. So anyway, it wasn't like they were saying, oh, Relis, she's just drinking and she's just bringing all this alcohol to work. Like, no, like, we not only had the open bar in the headquarters office when they had the holiday party, we had some alcoholic drinks in the regular office as well. Anyway, I don't even want to talk about that. It's just crazy drama experiences dealing with that company. I'm glad I'm not there anymore. I was more promiscuous at this time. Not overly, but I was. But I was also very more flirty than I was promiscuous. I am a self-published author of 3 books. They're not out. I pulled them from, where they were posted, for my own reasons, mainly because they were very dark. One of them was more of a detailed explanation of, me with my ex-husband and the stuff that I went through there and other things. Anyway, there was a coworker, an older coworker, that I was more flirty and stuff with. Never did anything with. Like I said, stuff from childhood will follow you until you've been washed by the blood of Christ. So that abandonment, I think, was a huge factor in how flirty I was, especially with older guys. Like, I was always talking to some older guy, never talked too much with younger guys. I'd have like the younger conversations, and be intimate with the younger guys, but with the older, it was more like more of a mature figure to discuss and have conversations with. And one of them had actually read the book about my life, which was a short autobiography at the time. And he was giving me pointers on it. He was like, you went through this and da 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 da. But he was very encouraging. It was never like a guy to try to take advantage or anything like that. The other 2 were more, saw me as, oh, this young lady that's, I'm trying to sleep with type thing. So there was that. I didn't start smoking weed until I was 31. I met this guy at a fashion show / just party. I was into hookah. I loved hookah back then. As soon as work was over, I may come home, shower, whatever, and then, be checking the time, the sun would be setting, and I'd be like, okay, I have this much time to go, go to hookah and hang out or whatever. That's how I met another younger guy I became intimate with. I'm just telling all my business today. Anyway, I met this guy at a fashion show, and he was a plug. He was a plug. For those of you who don't know what a plug is, it's a dealer, And I remember sitting in his car, which is funny, because it was like in the fashion show, it was like we met or we were talking or whatever, and he was like, come sit with me in my car, and I was like, no, I don't know who you are. But to this day, I will say that he very, very smart guy. I actually wish him nothing but blessings, in his life with his family and stuff. Anyway, we went to go sit in his car, and I remember he had these big, huge jars, mason jars full of marijuana. And, at the time I was like, oh, I never tried it, it's not really something, like, I'm not even really interested in that. It was, anyway, ended up trying it with him for the first time. And that night that I tried it with him, we were sitting in the car in a residential area. It was dark outside, like probably close to midnight, if not after. And I was tired, I was stressed from work as usual. That was the norm. Again, like when stress just sits on you for so long, like you really become a different person. And the first time I had took a pull from it, I was like, we were about to drive off, and I think we were going to get something to eat, and I was like, I really don't feel anything yet. And he was like, no, we got to go back. We got to go back and park because you're supposed to feel something. And so I smoked again, and then I started to feel something, and I just felt just kind of relaxed, just like this, just relaxed, and I was kind of sort of dozing off in a way. And then outside of the window, I saw, I don't know what it was. Now I could say, like, okay, maybe it was a spirit or a demon, something like that, and it was just coming towards the window so quick, and I was like, I kind of jumped, and I was like, what, and I could feel him look over at me like, are you okay? But at the time I just thought, I was half asleep, which kind of still, but at the same time, it's like, it was something spiritual happening in that moment. But him being there calmed me down. And you know, after that tiny experience, then I was cool. Like, you know, I wasn't completely addicted to it. But I was more interested. And so that became my thing. Anyway, fast forward, ended up losing my job because of drama, and on top of them saying that I was, you know, drunk on the job, which I was never drunk. I was never drunk on any job. But of course they consider it as intoxication if you drink. That's the policy, so whatever. And of course some other things that were beyond my control, things that had to do with other people submitting things to me, and it was basically blamed upon me. But at that time I pretty much knew, like, I was getting ready to be terminated because the turnover rate there was just insane. Like, we had new people like coming in for different departments, like about every week and a half. There was constant interviewing. Anyway, I got fired, and you know, for a while I stayed optimistic. I was applying like crazy to different places. That's all I did all day long, was just application. I must have did at least 100 applications a day, or somewhere in that range. And you know, I went on different interviews. I wasn't the best interviewee. I wasn't. But it always seemed like I would get like this close to getting a job, and then it wouldn't happen. And as a result, I became very, 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 very depressed. The enemy just had a ball with me during that time. Completely just broke anything that I kind of sort of had as a little foundation. The enemy just broke that. Just completely broke that. Now I still have my guy I would go smoke weed with. And you know, he would give me free stuff, which, you know, I greatly appreciated because money was tight. But I was who I was gone because of the depression. It wasn't even so much, oh, you lost your job. Like, no, it just felt like I was never going to come up. Like, this just weight was on me. Like, I'm never going to get, sorry guys, I'm checking the time because I do have a cleaning appointment that I have to get to. Okay, like 45 minutes or so. Trying to get as much as I can in this video so I can edit and chop it. But anyway, yeah, it just became very dark. I barely ate. I remember days where I'd have one fruit roll up and like a can of sardines, and I had no appetite. I had black curtains in my apartment, and I would keep them closed. Like, I never wanted to have any light come in. I would sit in the dark, and all the lights now, there was no way I would, in that apartment at the time, that I would have this much light. Like, even now, you guys can probably see light coming from this window, but my blinds are actually closed because of the video. But normally I'll have my blinds wide open. I'll have my blinds up. Like, I love light now. I love light now. Thank you, Jesus. I love light now, but back then, yeah, everything had to be dark. It had to be in darkness. I didn't even want to go outside, have the sun on me. If I left the house, it had to be at night. You know, I had to be walking at night. Because that's how I felt on the inside, just completely dark. I don't know how long that lasted. It lasted for a while. Me just being depressed and, you know, still even being in that depression. Like I was still watching, from time to time, I would still watch. Like that was still a part of my life then. I finally found two part-time jobs. Let me say this quickly. I had the best landlords. Okay. I was always the tenant who would pay their rent a week ahead of time. That's who I was, and for the most part, that's still who I am today. As far as bills are concerned, like I'm always ahead of time with things like that. They were gracious enough to lower my they were going to increase the rent, I believe, but they kept it the same. And you know, they were always like, you know, you're a great tenant, you've never missed a payment, and you were never late on a payment, you're quiet, excuse me, never had any issues with you. So they were very gracious to me with that. And then I was able to get 2 part-time jobs. One was working at a uniform store, which was quite interesting. In the New York school systems, a lot of them have like the different, I don't want to say button-ups, like collared shirts, you know, like plain collared shirts. Some of them will have like the little logo or something like that. I forget the name of that place that I used to work at. And then I was also working at Rainbow in the mall in Queens. Yeah. And that was good for me, because now, although, you know, most of the time I was walking there, so of course I never kept any weight on. I was walking all the way to the uniform shop and then to the mall, which was across the highway, and then back home, because, you know, there's no money right now for a bus pass, you know, to keep doing that. Trying to spend all my money for rent, you know. So I did that for a while. Met a few people there at Rainbow. I try to go deeper into this is all part of my testimony, but this part is leading up to where Jesus met me. Okay, so I had a coworker who worked with me at Rainbow. She was also looking for a more full-time position, you know, somewhere else, because the hours there were just, you know, sometimes I would come in, and then like an hour and a half, they were like, okay, well, we don't really need you right now because, things are slow here. And, it's kind of annoying. It's like, dang, I really need, this money or whatever. Anyway, the coworker, we often had lunch at the food court. We're sitting down talking, and she was like, oh, this lady left me a voicemail message. Regarding this position. It was some sort of pyramid scheme, but it was like a legit pyramid scheme. Anyway, I went to the appointment, and Jesus, I just ask that you guide my words. I went to the appointment, and at the time, I remember I would wear these beads, the like tiger's eye stone. I believe I had jade, black onyx, all these different stones, that I believe gave me protection and stuff. I was into the new age, but I didn't know like that was the new age. I knew of God, of Jesus, but I didn't know. I wasn't in a relationship with Christ. So, and never talked about any of, witchcraft or divination, the demonic realm. Like, none of that was ever discussed in the church that I went to. Back when I was, in high school and as a child. Anyway, I was wearing these beads. Had them on both arms, I believe. Trying to speak up so you guys can hear me. My voice is getting a little weak here. I had them on both arms, the beads, and I remember sitting down, and there was this guy sitting across from me, and he says, before he said anything, I knew he was gonna say something. I was just like, okay, well, what is he gonna say? And he says, wow, those are a lot of beads. And I just kind of looked at him. I was like, yeah. And, we started kind of small talking just briefly because we were in like a lobby area before they had the group interview. If any of you have ever been to a pyramid scheme event or intake for applicants, like they usually seat everyone in like a big group, and then they discuss what's needed or whatever. Anyway, we were sitting in the lobby area, and then I think I only small talked with them for like a minute, not even, before they were like, okay, everybody come on in. And we're watching some pyramid schemey video, and I was on one side of the room and he was on the other side of the room, but in the back, like kind of behind me, like I would have to turn to see him. And they had different questions. He was very outgoing, smart, brave. And I liked his energy, but I didn't really, even though I'd been flirty with most, well, I shouldn't say most, but flirty with guys that I found attractive at the time, or before I lost my job or whatever. I wasn't really trying to be in nothing. Like, I'm already going through all of this depression and stuff. He was just, oh, okay, like, you're just a guy, talking, but before he had left the room, I think this was after like the interview, and we were about to wrap up, and they wanted a few of us to stay or something for whatever reason, so I stayed behind. And he had left, But he came back in and gave me his phone number. And I was like, okay. He was like, oh, you can text me or whatever. I wish that I had lost that phone number. But then again, it was part of what placed me on this path with Christ. So there are no mistakes. There are only lessons to be learned. That job, they were interested in me, becoming an employee with them. I wasn't too interested in it because I felt as though, this is going to take me too long to make money to be able to pay my rent. This really is not going to work. So this is when I began to open my mind to other possibilities of making money. I actually just remembered this. I liked Cardi B at the time, and I was watching a interview of her talking about her, how she got into stripping and all of that, and started researching different videos, like, okay, what does a stripper need, like, what, how bad is it? Started researching these things, and then I decided, what, I'm just gonna try to become a stripper. And went to a strip club. Of course, I did my little research or whatever. It was in a decent area. It wasn't like in the back of some alley somewhere. I went there, and the lady took my information, ID, stuff like that. And she was like, okay, now you're gonna go up and dance. And I didn't feel, I think I was more embarrassed with my dancing. Wow, that was it. That was a funny, crazy night. But I knew after I got done up there, like, there's no way they're gonna call me. And they didn't, of course. It was bad. It was bad. So the next thing I was thinking of was finding a sugar daddy, as they call him. And then, of course, that led into becoming an escort, which is, to me, a glorified term of prostitution. And I remember going back and forth with myself on it, and I was just like, I've put in so many applications, I'm getting these interviews and they're not leading anywhere, or I'm getting this 2 part-time jobs that really aren't paying anything, and I'm really struggling. And my mom was always, trying to reach out to me, but I was always like, no, I can handle this. I can be very stubborn, in some ways, but I'm thankful that Jesus continues to work with me on some things, has been working with me and completely changed who I was after he changed me, and he's still changing me. Sometimes I don't know who I am for a second, like I know that I'm his and I belong to Jesus, like I know that, but certain things sometimes I'm like, well, dang, I don't do this anymore, I don't do that anymore, I don't think like that, I don't think like this anymore. Like he changes. The real Jesus, not the Jesus of religion, or the enlightened one, as they say. Jesus is. Oh man. I just hope that if there's any lost or unbelievers watching this video, like you just, something stirs within you, something tugs on your heart, tugs on your soul, tugs on your spirit to just give Jesus another try, to really give him a try and learn who he is, become immersed in who he is, to develop a true relationship with him, not just someone you're going to church, I'm going to church to have Jesus. No, Jesus doesn't want to be stuck in a church. That's not who he is. That's not what he came here for and died for. When I went back and forth with myself about doing escort services, did a lot of research, had my rules. I wasn't doing anything without protection. I didn't kiss on the lips, and I didn't know until after I came out of that, those were kind of the same things. The Pretty Woman, Julia Roberts played the lady in Pretty Woman. She kind of had the same roles, but anyway, I had my rules, and finally, at the time, I was also talking to the guy that I met at the interview at the pyramid scheme. We were kind of becoming more close, and then of course we got intimate with each other, and I kind of told him, which was a very big mistake, told him, I'm interested in becoming an escort or whatever. And he was like, I remember him saying, if you do this, there's no coming back from this. It was just the end of the world. Okay. And so I already had that in my mind. Okay, I'm gonna do this, whatever. My first night, I used an actual company. They have actual companies where they take your ID. They give you prices which you're supposed to charge per hour, all of this lovely stuff. And the first night, I was expecting it to just be, maybe a little talking, and then, you go straight into it, bam, you're done, you collect your money, you're out. But the client, he was kind of shy, kind of nervous, but giving. I remember not only did I get a big tip, but he also gave me food, which is not surprising because everyone wants to give me food because I'm so skinny, even nowadays, but which I appreciate because I love food. Anyway, there was no intimate act there, and I knew in that night alone, that number one, not all escorts, they just flat out just have sex with everyone they meet. And I realized that there's a lot of men that they're not as bold as maybe the common man to approach a woman, so they go through private services to, just to chat and just have conversations with, just someone to connect with, and there were many men that I met that were like that, where I would, nothing intimate would happen. It would just be conversations where they just wanted, a sense of companionship. And I was paid very well, but there were instances where I did, become intimate with them, and with some of them anyway. And then there were also times where I remember a guy, which was very interesting. It was late, and I think he was the last guy I was supposed to see, and I was thinking to myself, like, I'm hoping that, he's not trying to be intimate, because I know that I'm doing this, but no escort actually wants to do what she's doing. I'm just going to say that. No prostitute wants to do what she's doing, but because they do it well and they know that they can make money from it, that's it. And then, of course, I'm taking away the spiritual aspect of this now, even though it's all spiritual. To even want to be involved in escort services, like, there's something within you that has to be broken. No sane, whole, healthy human woman, desires to do this naturally. Like, something has to be broken within her. And I know some, not all, some men will say, "Oh, well, you're just trying to blame this on that, or blame this on your trauma." Like, where do you think that it comes from? Like, that desire doesn't just come out of a happy healthiness. Like, it comes from somewhere. Anyway, the guy, he was looking at me and he was like, you really shouldn't be doing this. You don't, I have daughters that look like you. Like, you really shouldn't be doing this. This isn't your thing. Just very nasty. Very, very nasty. And I'm thinking to myself, like, so you're married and you have a family, and yet you're calling escort services. Like, I didn't say that, of course. I was just thinking, I was too tired even to be trying to go back and forth with anybody about that. I just was like, it's very interesting how some people will view someone. Like, that was just something else to take away from my non-existent self-confidence and non-existent self-love. Yeah. Anyway, this guy that I met at the pyramid scheme, we hung out more. I really, really enjoyed being with him in the beginning. We would smoke together, like he was my smoking buddy. The plug that I, originally was with when I first tried marijuana, he was off. He had a child by then, so I just would text him every now and again, but it was never a relationship or anything like that with him. It was just more of a friendship type thing. He reminded me of myself, like, when I was in my 20s. Still mature in some ways, but naive in others. And definitely around the wrong crowd. I remember actually joking with him, saying that he was saying something about people being involved in the wrong crowds, and I said to him, "You are the wrong crowd." But he took advantage of the fact that I was, or wanted and did take advantage of the fact that I was involved in escort services, because he thought, oh, well, every client that you go see, you sleep with or whatever. Now, of course, I would have never even involved him in anything that I would have never involved anyone in what I was doing, because people, they they, especially the wrong people, they don't have your best intentions at heart. And why should they? They see you as scum of the earth. They see you as nasty and dirty and void of any real respect. They don't see you as God sees you, as someone who's broken and, you know, been through a lot of stuff, been through inappropriate things with family members or a family member. They don't see all of that. They don't see how that has a huge effect. Excuse me. They don't see how that has a huge effect on the choices that you make in life, especially someone who's younger, naive, and trying to look at someone who's older than them and thinking they know it all, and it's a different ballgame. Years past all of this, I had to get counseling, and I wasn't able to really go into deep detail with my counselor about this. I wasn't ready. So this is really my first time I'll be talking about this to anyone. I lost my apartment. I know what you're thinking, like, how did you lose your apartment? You're getting these great tips from your clients and so on and so forth. It still wasn't enough, and just starting to lose grips with this responsible person that I was, who always paid their bills on time, paid rent early sometimes, started to lose grips with that. I still remember there were times when I would forget what day it is because there's no, every day is kind of the same. I just kind of lost in my mind, completely lost. And because I was lost, I began to lose more and more of myself. And after I lost my apartment, I was homeless. But because of this guy that I met at the pyramid scheme, I should just call him the pyramid guy. His grandfather had his own house that he was staying in by himself. And it had 3 rooms, 2 rooms upstairs and 1 room downstairs, the basement that was never used, kitchen, so on and so forth. So at night, I would either be in the car with my driver, because the escort company that I worked with, they gave you had your own driver. Sometimes you'd have to share the car with 2 or 3 other girls, depending on the size of the car, all of that. I would go do that at night, and then most of the time I wouldn't get off work, as if you can call that work, until morning time. And then the pyramid guy's grandfather, he would allow us to come back to his house in the morning, and then I would kind of sleep during the day, or half of the morning, and then we would go hang out at parks, or we would go smoke. Most of the time I was always high. I was always high or about to get high. And if I wasn't going back to his grandfather's house, then I was going to a motel. Wow, really, you've really come a long way, haven't you? That went on for some time. I remember one of my drivers, they would kind of switch drivers. The company would switch drivers, is what I mean. His uncle, I believe, or something like that, had an apartment. and he was renting out the room. Like, there was the room, then between the can y'all read that? I don't know if y'all can read that at all. There's I was in room 1, and my room had like the fire escape there, where the pyramid guy and I would go out there at night and go smoke. Let me stop stalling because I'm reluctant to talk about this, but I need to because I know that it's going to set somebody free. So I was with that driver, and you know, sometimes there would be like a break in between one client and another. Sometimes a client would call in, you know, maybe 2 hours after the last person or whatever. And it was cold and, you know, late, and you know, so we stopped at some parking lot or something. It was kind of, I wouldn't say abandoned, but there was nobody there. Help me, Jesus. Help me, Jesus. Somehow, looking back now, I know that I was drugged. I was drugged and I was raped. And I don't want to say how I found out because it's kind of vulgar. I could probably get flagged and this thing be taken down, but as I stated before, I have always been all about protection. Wearing protection when you're involved in intimate acts. You guys know what I'm talking about. And I was showering. I'm just trying to go through this real quick. I was showering and something, form of protection came out, and I was just sort of like, well, you know, the last client I was with, such and such, you know, I would, you know, and of course I could have made a big thing out of it, but no proof. No proof, but I could read people's expressions, and I pretty much knew. And I just bottled it up. You know, I just took it as, oh, well, you know, in this lifestyle, that's, you know, stuff like that might happen. And then I'm not even sure of the circumstances with everything, but there was a recent testimony I was watching on Tuku, I believe. Maybe I could try to link that testimony to this video. And the lady, she was involved in dealing a lot of crazy drugs that would you know, completely make a person under a hypnotic sort of spell, or where they would just do everything that someone told them to do. And I've had an instance where, you know, one minute I was completely coherent as I am now, and the next minute I would be almost like waking up, but it was like I never went to sleep.
You're the only one I have, and that's okay. You're the truth, you're the light, and